Welcome back to A People's Guide to Publishing. I'm Joe Beal, the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing and Distribution. I'm also the author of A People's Guide to Publishing, which distills what I've learned from selling millions of books over the past 25 years.
I'm Ellie Blue. I'm the editorial and marketing director here at Microcosm. We are an independent mid-list publisher based in Portland, Oregon, and Cleveland, Ohio. We have over 700 books, over 25 employees, and we make about 40 new books every year. And we distribute thousands of titles from other publishers.
We started this podcast so that we can share what we've learned with newer publishers so that you can learn from our mistakes.
Or maybe you just want to understand the publishing industry.
This week, we will answer the question, how do I make my book evergreen?
Not deciduous. I'm being a tree. Sorry.
Oh, I see. You're having a very advanced level of humor going on here.
And I had to point it out, which I feel like kind of spoiled it.
Yeah, you don't want to... Or wait, do you want to have to explain jokes? I can't remember.
Well, I think you're writing a zine about this.
Oh, so yes. How to humor with autism.
In the course of your research, you'll find out the answer.
I better find out soon. The dates are coming up on me.
I'm a little embarrassed now.
Actually, the dates probably came out. The thing probably has come out by now, by the time of this airing.
We definitely have had to be canceling pre-orders for this one for a while now, I think.
Burn. Well, in better news...
And definitely not off topic.
Well, no, I mean, that's very on topic, in fact. So, How to Humor with Autism is an evergreen title.
That's true.
Why is it an evergreen title?
Oh, you're asking me? Well,
you are the expert.
It's not tied around any kind of specific event or trend. It is a topic that autistic people and perhaps neurotypical people or people with other neurodivergences will always be interested in. Humor is like fundamental human interest, and how to be funny is something people will always want to know.
Oh, interesting. I took it more as like, I assumed that the primary audience would be autistic people, but yeah, you're right. It's like people that want to be funny, or like, I feel like it's like a 21st century extension of the like, what is the Dale Carnegie book called? Like, How to Be Popular and Have People Like You?
Yeah, it's something like that.
That's it. That's definitely exactly what it is, actually. But that's an evergreen book, too. Because, I mean, it's an evergreen book in the sense that, like, the readership of it is aging, and young people are probably, like, grabbing that thing with, like, shaky claws. But, like, it tells you what it is. It tells you what you're getting out of it. It tells you who it's for. It tells you who it's not for. And it tells you why you care. Which is, like, fundamental. I mean, I feel like I could say that on every single episode of the podcast, and it would not be enough times.
I feel like this one is even better than Evergreen, though, because more and more people are being diagnosed with autism every year, so the audience will grow steadily as those individuals age into the audience of this zine.
Your math is a little buggy because, the entire population of the planet grows every year, so that would indicate that all books would have an increased readership. Why is this one different?
Wait, but so would the, well, I mean, this one's different because it's by and for autistic adults, and perhaps young adults as well in this case. And that audience has a deficit of books. Deficit is the wrong word and kind of loaded. Sorry. Dearth? Is that the right word?
No, there's a deficit. It's the wrong word, but yeah, you're right. There is a lack of suitable material that is actually what it needs to be.
So this book is better than Evergreen. It is owning a market niche. Or part of our process of owning a market niche.
Right, so part of being evergreen is, it's really hard to be evergreen if you're writing, like, young adult fantasy books.
Right.
You could do it.
Yeah.
But you'd really have to think that one through.
It doesn't always age well.
To be like, how will this trope read in 25 years? How will people interpret my appropriation of XYZ over time? And maybe it'll be cool, like it does happen where a lot of books are like discovered many years later. Maybe I wouldn't say a lot of books. Some books are discovered many years later and like the brilliance of them is found out, you know. But, this is one time where I will give our critics a bone. This does apply a lot more to nonfiction than it does to fiction.
Interesting.
Because it is just a lot harder to do this with fiction well. And, especially science fiction, because, whoo boy, the world changes.
I know, and science fiction is necessarily about what you're imagining is at the cutting edge and is it the future. It's way more current events than it gets credit for.
I recently learned that science fiction is actually about studying an ethical quandary through a theoretical example.
Whoa. Where did you learn that?
I read occasionally.
It's pretty good. I like that.
Because it's like you when an example is real, it's a little too loaded. And I never really thought about science fiction as being an ethical thing. But yeah. And then I thought about it and I was like, right. I haven't read a lot of science fiction books in the past year, but I have in my life, and I've I might see a movie every year, maybe. And in every single example I probed, I was like, science fiction joke, I was like, oh yeah, that is in fact an ethical consideration, is what they're really going for.
Well, so back to publishing evergreen books, how do you know if your book idea is evergreen or not?
Well, you look at it and you say, is it about a current event? Is it about a story that's still in progress? You're not gonna be the Mueller probe. Everybody is gonna care a lot about this in 10 years.
True, not evergreen. Great example.
They're gonna be I absolutely would never like to hear about that ever again in 1 year. So you really have to look at it from that. That's your deepest evaluation, where you're what, versus there's trends in gardening, but the information is more or less the same. You don't see a lot of oh, we were wrong about this. It's actually this other way. And it's kind of the same thing. We did this book. I think this is kind of what put us on this track accidentally. So the originals were called, I think they're just called How and the Number 2. And the originals came out in 98 and 99. And then by 2002, we put them together in the book, Making Stuff and Doing Things.
So they were zines? Zine books?
Yeah, they were
published
long enough that they were square, but they were not the 300 and some pages that the first edition was. And that was how we kind of stumbled into it. And then those, literally written 25 years ago, are just as relevant today as they were when they were written.
Right, because none of it was cutting edge technology or here's what to do with new AI robotic science. It was all
Mm-hmm.
here's how to clean your socks when you don't have a washing machine while you're train hopping, and here's how to make a bowl out of a vinyl record, and that level of skill.
And it's interesting because when I was younger, I read 2600. Did you ever read 2600? You may as well be reading Newsweek. It's
what is it?
It's talking about, and this is before the era of white hats and that, but it's securities and computing kind of. It's the subcultural side of computing, I guess you would say. And even then, if you didn't read an issue within 6 to 12 months, it would be outdated. Because it would just be the world of computers changes really fast,
Yeah.
And one of my favorite magazines is it just wrote video game reviews in 1992, I think it was, and I still have it. And but it's so quaint now, because you'd be polygon graphics are gonna change everything. You know, like it actually looks 3-dimensional. You know,
right
at a time when
right.
that, or it might even have been older than that. But it must have been older than that because it was like before Wolfenstein or Doom or any other and so you really want to look at it that way, and I think it's like a mindset to get into. I don't think it's like a difficult concept. I think it's more like, will this issue be perceived the same way in a few years?
Yeah.
It's kind of the only real question. And then, like, will people talk about this issue? And sometimes there'll be like a language shift or things like that, or
Yeah, some things you can't predict.
But if the book is got good feet on it, then you can adjust that language in the title, subtitle, and cover. And it will be selling enough that you'll be able to reprint. So you really want to think about it that way.
Yeah, and you kind of need to make some editorial decisions around that as well.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub.
On Twitter at Microcosm.
On Facebook at Microcosm Publishing.
On Instagram at Microcosm_pub.
And here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.